ladies and gentlemen, good. Samantha, today we are gathered here to discuss something truly important, something that speaks directly to the heart of our human experience. The topic at hand is life in genless fire. Now, I know it might sound like a peculiar phrase at first glance, but I promise you, by the end of this conversation, you'll see that it holds immense significance. Fire, in its most basic form, is one of nature's most powerful forces. Fire, it can be a source of life, warmth, and light, but it also has the potential for destruction. It is ancient and primal, something that humans have both feared and revered for thousands of years. But what does fire truly symbolize? At its essence, fire represents transformation. It burns away the old, clearing space for the new. It refines, purifies, and creates. When we think of fire, we often think of its most immediate qualities, the heat, the brightness, the way it can leap from one spark to another, spreading in every direction, unstoppable in its pursuit of fuel. However, there's something deeper to fire than just its physical properties. Fire holds within it the potential to change not only the environment, but also the person who tends it. For us as individuals, fire is symbolic of our inner desires, passions, and goals. Think about it. When we feel deeply motivated, when we are excited about something, we often describe that feeling as being on fire. This is not just a metaphor, it's the truth. Fire is energy, it is momentum, it is movement. It's the spark of life itself. It burns with a sense of urgency, of determination, and of purpose. It has the ability to drive us forward, even when we feel like giving up. But there's a balance to this force. Just as a fire can warm a home, it can also destroy everything in its path if not controlled. In our lives, we must learn to cultivate the fire within us without letting it overtake us. It's about knowing when to keep the flames burning brightly and when to allow them to simmer down. When we keep the fire of passion, ambition, and purpose alive within us, we are driven by a sense of determination, clarity, and vision. But when we let it burn out of control, we risk losing sight of our true path. This is why the essence of fire is not only about igniting that spark, but also about learning to manage it in a way that serves us and the world around us. Fire can also be a teacher. It teaches us about cycles, how something can burn intensely and when it has exhausted its fuel, fade away only to start again. It teaches us that there is a rhythm in life, a natural flow that we must honor. We may have moments of intense activity, of burning bright with energy and purpose, but we must also honor the periods of rest and renewal where the fire within us is allowed to breathe, settle, and gather strength for the next phase of our journey. In its truest essence, fire reflects the core of who we are. It is the force that drives us, the energy that fuels our aspirations, the light that leads us through the darkness. But like all things of great power, it must be handled with respect, with wisdom, and with mindfulness. Because just as fire has the ability to create, it also has the ability to consume. The choice always is ours. We decide how we tend to our internal fire, whether we let it burn with purpose and intention or allow it to spiral out of control. When we think of fire, we're not just talking about something that happens externally in the world around us. We're talking about the energy and force that lies within each of us. It is in every dream, every goal, every passion, and when we understand how to work with it, we unlock a deeper level of understanding about ourselves and the world we live in. Fire isn't just an element, it's the force of life itself. The power of ignition lies in the spark that starts it all, The moment when something within us stirs, when a new idea takes root, when a desire or vision begins to take shape. It's that first flicker of energy, that sudden shift from complacency to action, from inertia to motion. Ignition is not simply about starting something. It's about awakening something deep within, a part of ourselves that was either dormant or waiting for the right moment to burst forth into life. It's a powerful catalytic force. When you ignite something, whether it's a goal, a dream, or a movement, you tap into the boundless energy that resides in all of us. You shift the trajectory of your life with a single spark. The key to ignition is that it is often unpredictable. It's like striking a match. Sometimes the first strike doesn't catch. It might take several attempts, but when it finally does, that tiny flame can grow into something powerful and unstoppable. Similarly, in our lives, there are moments of uncertainty, moments where we wonder whether the spark we are trying to create will catch. The power of ignition, then, is rooted in persistence, in the willingness to keep striking even when the results aren't immediate. The energy you invest in that first step has the potential to set in motion a chain of events that will shape your future. When ignition occurs, it's often accompanied by a rush of energy, a sense of excitement and anticipation. It feels like you've unlocked something, like the universe has aligned, and suddenly everything feels possible. But this is also the moment when responsibility arises. Ignition doesn't just come with excitement, it also comes with a need for clarity. It's not enough to simply have the spark. We must be intentional about what we do with it. Without proper direction, the spark can fizzle out as quickly as it ignited. But with purpose, focus, and determination, it can burn brightly and lead to transformation. In today's fast-paced world, more and more people are spending more time at home, connecting with nature, making more plants. Ignition, in a sense, is a personal revolution. It represents a turning point in your life, a moment when something shifts in you, a deep realization that you are capable of far more than you once believed. It's the activation of your potential, a kind of awakening to the truth that you can influence the course of your life, that your actions and intentions can lead to real change. This is where transformation begins. It's when the ordinary becomes extraordinary, when what seemed like a fleeting thought or a distant dream suddenly feels tangible and within reach. But ignition is not always easy. It requires courage. It takes bravery to make the first move, to step into the unknown, to embrace the possibility of failure as part of the process. Because with every spark, there is the risk of not knowing whether it will take hold, of not knowing whether it will turn into something lasting. The power of ignition, then, is not just in the initial spark, but in the faith we place in ourselves to keep fanning the flames until they grow into something significant. When we ignite something, we also invite change. We welcome the unknown, the challenge, and the journey ahead. And that process of ignition is what propels us toward the people we are meant to become. It marks the beginning of a new chapter, one where we take ownership of our growth, where we make the conscious decision to fuel the fire within us with passion, with purpose, and with unwavering belief in what's possible. In the end, the power of ignition is the reminder that we each have the ability to create change, to take that first step, to spark the fire that will light our way and fuel our journey. It's a powerful force because it's not just about what we ignite in the world, it's about what we ignite within ourselves. It's about remembering that each spark is an opportunity, a chance to move forward, to make an impact, and to create something meaningful. And once we understand the true power of ignition, we see that we are never really starting from scratch. Every spark is just a continuation of the energy that's always been within us, waiting to be released. The concept of doing something without injury holds a deeper meaning when we reflect on it beyond its surface. It suggests the idea of pursuing our goals, ambitions, and desires with a sense of integrity, mindfulness, and care. It means making choices that not only serve our own interests, but also consider the well-being of others, the environment, and the world around us. Too often we get caught up in the rush of life, in the pursuit of success, and in the desire to achieve at any cost. But the phrase "without injury" calls us to pause and reflect on the impact of our actions, ensuring that our journey toward achievement doesn't come at the expense of others' happiness, health, or dignity. As a reminder, this podcast briefly discusses what to do. To live without injury is to act with compassion and thoughtfulness. It's about seeking a path that honors the human connections we have, rather than viewing others as obstacles or stepping stones on the way to personal gain. In our personal and professional lives, we often face situations that challenge us, whether it's a competitive environment, a difficult conversation, or a complex decision-making process. But how we navigate these moments reveals our true character. Do we move forward with aggression or ambition that may harm others, or do we find ways to rise together, to uplift rather than tear down? Pursuing our desires without injury means understanding that the ends do not justify the means, and that our success should not come at the cost of another's well-being. Right? This idea is not limited to our interactions with people. It extends to the way we live our lives in harmony with the world around us. How often do we make choices that negatively impact the environment, the community, or the future generations that will inherit this world? To act without injury requires that we consider the larger consequences of our actions. It challenges us to think beyond the immediate benefits and to act in a way that leaves a positive, lasting impact. Whether it's through sustainability, through kindness, or through a genuine desire to contribute to the collective good. It's important to note that this doesn't mean we should avoid conflict or challenges entirely. Conflict, when approached with respect and empathy, can lead to growth and understanding. It's not about being passive or avoiding difficult conversations. Rather, it's about being intentional in how we approach them. We can disagree, challenge, and confront with love and integrity. In fact, many of the most important movements in history have involved difficult conversations and actions that, though challenging, have been pursued with a sense of justice and respect for others. To act without injury is to take the high road, even when the path is steep and uncertain, knowing that true success is measured not by how much we accumulate, but by how much we uplift. End quote. Living without injury also requires us to acknowledge our own faults, to confront the moments when we have hurt others, intentionally or unintentionally. We must learn to take responsibility for our actions, to ask for forgiveness when necessary, and to strive for reconciliation. It is through this process of self-awareness and humility that we grow as individuals and as a collective. We are all imperfect, but our ability to reflect, learn, and change is what allows us to continue to move forward without causing harm. Moreover, pursuing a path without injury also requires patience. Often we seek results too quickly, driven by impatience or the pressures of society. We may sacrifice quality for speed or rush toward success without fully considering the journey. But success built on hurried, reckless decisions can lead to burnout or leave others in our wake. To act without injury is to embrace the pace of thoughtful, intentional progress. It's understanding that sometimes it's the slow, deliberate steps that build the most enduring legacies. In relationships, whether personal or professional, the principle of acting without injury means creating environments of trust, respect, and support. It's about choosing kindness over indifference, generosity over greed, and listening over assuming. It's about being conscious of the words we speak and the actions we take, knowing that our energy, both positive and negative, affects those around us. In essence, it affects those around us. Even in moments of conflict, we have the choice to act with grace, to respond thoughtfully, and to protect the dignity of others, even when we don't agree. This type of approach fosters deeper connections and strengthens the bonds that unite us. Living without injury asks us to embrace vulnerability. It's about being willing to be open, to admit when we are wrong, to apologize when we have made mistakes, and to do so without shame. It's also about being willing to stand up for others, to defend those who are harmed, and to speak out when injustice is present. This is a delicate balance, knowing when to protect, when to act, and when to let go. It's an ongoing practice, one that requires constant reflection, growth, and awareness. Living a life without injury is about choosing a path that nurtures both personal growth and the collective good. It's about understanding that our journey, while personal, is intertwined with the journeys of those around us. Our successes, our ambitions, and our dreams are not truly fulfilled unless they are aligned with the greater good, unless they are pursued in a way that causes no harm, but instead contributes to the well-being of others and the world as a whole. To live without injury is to choose compassion, empathy, integrity, and respect at every step of the way. Harnessing the heat is an act of understanding and controlling the intense energy that exists within us and around us. Heat in many ways symbolizes passion, drive, and motivation. The fire that propels us toward our goals, fuels our ambitions, and sparks creativity. But this heat, like any powerful force, must be managed carefully. Left unchecked, it can overwhelm us, consuming everything in its path. However, when understood and channeled, the heat within us becomes an unstoppable force, guiding us to success, growth, and transformation. When we think about the energy of heat, we often think of it as something that can either build us up or break us down. It can be a source of warmth and comfort or a source of destruction and discomfort. The key is understanding how to balance and direct that energy. Imagine the heat as the energy that flows through your veins every time you pursue something you care deeply about. Whether it's a personal goal, a professional ambition, or a creative project. This heat fuels us, but it's easy to get carried away. The intensity can sometimes cause burnout or emotional exhaustion if not properly managed. That's where the art of harnessing the heat comes in. To harness the heat means to take that powerful, raw energy and direct it with intention. Think of it like controlling a wildfire. If you simply let the flames spread without direction, they will wreak havoc. But if you can channel them into a controlled burn, you can clear land, create space for new growth, and even generate warmth and light. Similarly, the energy within you can be used to break through barriers, overcome obstacles, and create lasting change. But only if you understand how to direct it. This involves maintaining focus, setting clear goals, and understanding your limits. Too much heat in one direction can leave you feeling overwhelmed, whereas too little energy can cause stagnation. Harnessing the heat also means embracing the discomfort that often accompanies growth. Heat, after all, is not always easy to endure. When we face challenges, when we push ourselves to go beyond what we thought was possible, we often encounter friction. The heat can feel uncomfortable, even painful, but it's through that discomfort that we transform. It's in those moments of intense struggle that we find strength, resilience, and the capacity to grow. Atrocity is the struggle that we find strength, resilience, and the capacity to grow. By learning to withstand the heat and to use it to fuel us, we become more adept at navigating the complexities of life. It's not about avoiding the heat, it's about learning to dance with it, to channel it into something meaningful. Part of harnessing the heat is understanding when to turn up the intensity and when to let the flames simmer. There are times in life when we need to push ourselves hard, to work with urgency, to put in the effort that will move us toward our dreams. This is when the heat should burn brightly, giving us the energy to stay focused and committed to our goals. But there are also moments when we need to step back and allow the heat to cool. Rest, reflection, and recovery are as vital as the energy we put into our work. Without moments of rest, the heat becomes unsustainable and we risk burning out. Harnessing the heat means knowing when to push forward and when to allow the fire to rest, knowing that both extremes are necessary for long-term success. The heat within us also connects us to our deepest passions and desires. Think about the things that truly light you up, that spark excitement and energy in your life. Whether it's a creative project, a career aspiration, or a cause you care about, that inner heat is the energy that propels you forward. However, it's essential to remember that passions like fire require fuel. If we don't feed our passions with purpose and intention, the heat can dissipate, leaving us feeling uninspired or disconnected. The key is to keep adding fuel that is aligned with our true values and long-term vision. When we feed our passions with the right energy, we create a sustainable and powerful source of motivation. But harnessing the heat also requires self-discipline. Heat in its rawest form can be chaotic and unpredictable. Without discipline, the heat can easily become destructive. It's through self-restraint, focus, and consistency that we can ensure the heat remains a positive force in our lives. This discipline isn't about stifling the energy or suppressing our enthusiasm. Rather, it's about directing that enthusiasm with purpose and clear intentions. It's about knowing when to act and when to pause, when to take bold steps forward and when to wait for the right moment. Discipline ensures that the heat we generate doesn't burn us out, but instead propels us toward our ultimate goals. Ultimately, harnessing the heat is about more than just achieving success. It's about understanding that the energy within us is sacred. It is what drives us, motivates us, and helps us evolve. It is the fuel for our growth and transformation. But like any great force, it must be handled with care, with awareness, and with intentionality. It's not about how hot the fire burns, but about how well we control the heat, how wisely we direct it, and how thoughtfully we use it to shape the life we want to create. When we learn to harness the heat, we not only achieve our goals, but also become more attuned to our own power, more connected to our purpose, and more capable of creating positive change in the world around us. The heat within and without represents the dynamic relationship between our internal drive and the external forces that influence our lives. The heat within is the internal fire that fuels our ambitions, dreams, and passions. It is the source of our motivation, the force that pushes us to pursue goals and break through barriers. Internal forces allow us to imprint who we are visually and thus satiate our inner longing. It's that undeniable energy we feel when we're inspired, when we're working on something we deeply care about, or when we're striving toward a vision that feels larger than ourselves. This internal heat is what keeps us moving forward even when the road gets tough. It's the voice inside telling us to keep going, to persevere, and to push past obstacles. But this internal heat is not something that exists in a vacuum. It is constantly in interaction with the world around us, the heat without. The heat without is the external energy, the challenges, influences, and pressures that we face from society, our environment, and other people. This heat comes in many forms. It might be the demands of work, the expectations of others, or the socio-political climate in which we live. It can be the positive external validation that propels us forward, or it can be negative forces like criticism, adversity, or even the inertia of the world itself. The heat without is the energy and challenges that come from the external world, which can either support or resist the heat within us. In life, we are constantly balancing these two forces, the heat we generate from within and the heat we encounter from the outside world. Our internal heat drives us, but the heat outside of us often tests us. The challenge then is in managing this interplay. When we encounter external pressure, whether it's a personal pressure, societal expectations, or challenges in our professional lives, our internal heat may be tested. How we respond to these external forces determines whether the fire within us burns stronger or whether it begins to flicker out. It's easy to feel overwhelmed when the heat from the outside world becomes too intense, when external circumstances begin to shape our thoughts, our behaviors, and our emotions. Yet the power of the heat within is that it can adapt, it can grow, and it can resist the external forces that attempt to diminish it. The key is learning how to protect and nourish your internal flame. Just like a fire in the wild that requires fuel, space, and proper ventilation to thrive, the heat within us needs to be nurtured. It needs positive energy, space for growth, and a sense of purpose. When we create a foundation within ourselves, through self-belief, purpose, resilience, and self-care, we can withstand the challenges that the heat without may present. Instead of being consumed or extinguished by the pressures around us, we can maintain our inner fire, ensuring that it stays alive, burning brightly in the face of adversity. At the same time, the heat within must recognize and adapt to the heat without. Just as fire requires an element of balance, too much heat can lead to destruction, while too little heat can cause it to fade. The relationship between our internal and external heat must be in harmony. There are moments when the external heat may push us toward growth and transformation, challenging us to rise above our current limitations. But the absence of the latter, growth and transformation, will not satisfy the absence of the former, because it reinforces the truth that external heat may push us toward growth and limitation. This external heat, though difficult, can ignite new ways of thinking, new solutions, and new paths forward. In this sense, external pressure can be a powerful motivator that forces us to evolve, to push beyond our comfort zones, and to create opportunities where none existed before. However, there are also times when the external heat becomes overwhelming, when the demands of life, society, or others begin to stifle our internal flame. In these moments, it's crucial to stay connected to the heat within, to remember why we started, to reconnect with our sense of purpose, and to draw from the well of resilience that resides deep inside us. When the heat without becomes too intense, it's easy to lose sight of our own truth. We may feel lost or disconnected from our own desires and ambitions. This is when the heat within becomes even more vital, as it serves as the anchor that keeps us grounded and moving forward despite the external pressures. The balance between the heat within and without also requires us to acknowledge our limits. Just as a fire can burn out if it lacks fuel or if the heat becomes too much, we must be aware of when the external heat is draining us or when we are overextending ourselves. Life, after all, is not just about constant motion and effort. It's about understanding when to allow the fire to rest and when to reignite it. The external world may try to force us into a constant state of action, of productivity, of doing, but true strength comes from knowing when to pause, reflect, and replenish the heat within. In this ongoing dance between the internal and external, we also encounter moments of synergy. There are times when the heat within and without align, when our internal passion and the external environment meet at the perfect moment. These are the times when our efforts feel effortless, when everything seems to fall into place, and when we can accomplish things that once seemed impossible. Moments like that occur all the time in our lives, when our internal passion seems to fall into place and when we can accomplish things that once seemed impossible. In these moments, the heat within and without work together in harmony, amplifying each other and driving us toward our fullest potential. The challenge then is not to separate the two forms of heat, but to find ways to integrate them, to channel both the internal and external forces in a way that moves us toward growth, understanding, and transformation. It's about recognizing that we are not only shaped by our inner fire, but also by the world we inhabit. We must learn how to adapt, how to grow from the external forces without losing the essence of who we are and what drives us. In doing so, we can move through life with the kind of balance and resilience that allows us to create lasting change, both within ourselves and in the world around us. The endless cycle of rebirth is a concept that echoes through various cultures, philosophies, and spiritual teachings, representing the perpetual process of death and renewal, destruction and creation. It embodies the idea that life in all its forms is not linear but cyclical, constantly evolving, regenerating, and transforming. Rebirth is not simply a physical phenomenon. It is a spiritual and emotional journey that we all experience, often in subtle and profound ways throughout our lives. Each ending is not a conclusion, but a prelude to a new beginning, a transition to the next phase of existence. At the heart of the cycle of rebirth is the idea of change. Change is inevitable, and with it comes the dissolution of old forms. Whether it's the end of a relationship, the loss of a job, or the closing of a chapter in life. These endings often bring about feelings of fear, grief, and uncertainty. However, these moments of transition are not just about loss. They are also about the potential for growth, renewal, and transformation. Every ending creates the space for something new to emerge. It is in the face of endings that we discover our resilience, our capacity to adapt, and our ability to begin again. Rebirth, in this sense, is not about erasing the past or forgetting the experiences we've had. It is about integrating the lessons learned, the wisdom gained, and the strength developed through our challenges and triumphs. Rebirth is a process of becoming, not just a return to a previous state, but an evolution toward a new, higher version of ourselves. This cycle is not about escaping pain or hardship. It's about using those moments as catalysts for growth. Through suffering, loss, and difficulty, we often find the seeds of transformation that, when nurtured, can lead to greater wisdom, compassion, and understanding. This cycle manifests in different ways in our lives. It can be as grand as the transition from one phase of life to another, like childhood to adulthood or career changes that redefine our sense of purpose. But it can also be found in the smaller, everyday moments, like the personal growth we experience after overcoming an obstacle, or the rejuvenation that follows a period of rest or reflection. The endless cycle of rebirth is about our continuous evolution as human beings, the process of shedding old patterns, limiting beliefs and habits that no longer serve us, and making room for new ideas, new opportunities, and new ways of being. In nature, the cycle of rebirth is ever present. The changing seasons offer a profound metaphor for this concept. The death of winter gives way to the birth of spring. The fading of summer leads to the renewal of autumn. Just as plants die and regrow, animals shed their old skins and develop new ones, and the earth itself regenerates over time. So too do we experience cycles of growth and decay in our own lives. Each season brings with it a unique set of challenges and opportunities for renewal, and through each one we learn to adapt, to embrace the changes, and to grow stronger. But rebirth is not always a smooth or predictable process. It can feel tumultuous and uncertain, filled with moments of doubt and fear. The process of reinvention often involves discomfort, as we must break free from old identities, ways of thinking, or patterns of behavior. The comfort of the familiar can be difficult to let go of, even when it no longer serves us. But it is precisely in this discomfort that transformation happens. Rebirth requires us to venture into the unknown, to trust that even in the face of uncertainty, there is potential for something better, something more aligned with our true selves. The cycle of rebirth is also deeply tied to the concept of resilience. It is the ability to rise again, to keep moving forward despite setbacks and challenges. Resilience is the capacity to find strength in the face of adversity, to embrace the process of rebirth even when it feels difficult or painful. Each time we experience a rebirth, we grow stronger, more capable of facing the next challenge that life presents. The cycle teaches us that failure is not final, that setbacks are simply part of the journey, and that every ending is an opportunity to begin anew. There is also a spiritual dimension to the endless cycle of rebirth. In many spiritual traditions, the idea of reincarnation, or the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, reflects a belief in the immortality of the soul. The soul in these beliefs is never truly gone. It simply transforms, evolving through different lives and experiences. The physical body may perish, but the essence of who we are, the soul, continues its journey of growth and development. The soul continues its journey of growth and development. This idea offers a profound sense of hope and continuity, suggesting that the challenges and losses we experience in one life are not in vain, but are part of a larger, ongoing process of spiritual evolution. Number 5. Circle the number 5. Draw a magical circle over the top. In addition to the personal and spiritual aspects of rebirth, the cycle can also be observed on a collective level. Societies, cultures, and nations experience their own cycles of growth and decay. Throughout history, civilizations have risen and fallen, but through these cycles, new ideas, movements, and cultures have emerged. Revolutions, reforms, and innovations often arise from the ashes of what has come before, and through collective rebirth, societies are able to rebuild, adapt, and create new systems, values, and ways of living. This reminds us that even on a larger scale, the cycle of rebirth is a force of creation and regeneration, constantly driving humanity toward progress and evolution. The endless cycle of rebirth is not just a philosophical or spiritual concept. It is a lived experience. It is the force that drives us to continue growing, learning, and transforming. Whether we are aware of it or not, we are all in the process of rebirth, shedding old versions of ourselves and emerging as new beings, more aligned with our highest potential. Let's begin. Embracing this cycle is about accepting that life is constantly changing and that each change, no matter how challenging or painful, carries the potential for growth. The endless cycle of rebirth encourages us to trust the process of transformation, to see each new beginning as an opportunity to evolve, and to understand that our journey, like nature itself, is one of continuous renewal. In conclusion, the endless cycle of rebirth is a powerful reminder of the constant transformation that shapes our lives. It teaches us that life is not a linear path, but a series of cycles, each bringing with it opportunities for growth, renewal, and evolution. The heat within us drives us to pursue our passions and dreams, while the heat without challenges us, pushing us to adapt and evolve. As we drift within our fantasy, the heat without challenges us, pushing us to adapt and evolve. As we navigate this cycle, we learn to embrace both the discomfort of change and the beauty of reinvention. Whether it's the end of a phase, the facing of adversity, or the embracing of new possibilities, each cycle is an invitation to shed the old and embrace the new. Through every ending, we find the seeds of a new beginning, and with each rebirth, we grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The cycle reminds us that transformation is not something to fear, but something to celebrate. It calls us to trust the process, to honor the lessons learned, and to step boldly into each new chapter with the understanding that we are always in the process of becoming. Embracing the endless cycle of rebirth is about recognizing that change is not just inevitable, but essential to our growth and fulfillment. Life is a constant dance of birth and rebirth, and it is through this dynamic, ongoing process that we discover the true essence of our potential.